identity document. An employer, a bank, a state. That's more or less the way things are right now. Okay? This fourth scenario, the high-tech and the strong authentication, that's, at least in this country, that's sort of the furthest in the future. Although all of the people that I interviewed agreed that it wasn't impossible, it was simply further in the future. So they were all very much possible trends. Yeah.
Is it possible to have high-tech authentication and low-tech strong?
Is it possible to have those?
Yeah.
Sure. High-tech would be a situation where you have, let's say, you have a virtual customer, you have a document that has an RFID chip in it, perhaps, but you have weak authentication, and that still you're in a situation where almost anybody can issue a document. The document may be a high-tech document, but you're not limited, just using that one example, you're not limited to a single issuer. So yeah, sure. And in the document itself, I go into some more details about how that would work. Yeah. Just to give you an example of the cluster analysis that I did. Now that I've gotten all these ratings, you say, well, that's nice, but so what? Okay, here's the so what. What I did was, for the columns are, or I should say, each row represents one of the characteristics, one of the 21 characteristics or attributes of identity documents. Each column represents one of the experts' ratings. And what I did was to sort the rows so that the highest consensus rows are at the census. This tree on the right suggests that these characteristics, that's where you have the highest consensus. You see that they're all they're all over 90%. There's a 90% line here. And they're all just about or slightly over 90%. In the details, I have the exact numbers and so on. I can get into that. Well, just to explain what this picture means. Okay. So we're in step 4. Sorry, yes. Yes, sure. Back one. Beg your pardon. Yeah.
So gender is not necessarily as important as tamper proofing. So if I walked in and had something that said I was a male, it wouldn't be important?
We're not looking here at importance, we're looking at consensus. That's what this is showing. It's consensus among the experts. It's not importance. It may be rated very important, possibly, but not equally so by all 38 people.
Okay.
This is telling us about consensus, not about rating, not about average rating.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Average rating is there as well.
Question 1, not on question 2.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct. This is question 1 answer. Well, no, because there are ratings in here. This is consensus about the rating.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna go through these fairly quickly because they're all essentially the same. They just relate to the different scenarios. And again, you have the details in the document. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
So this consensus of rating basically means that though you're saying date of birth, date of expiry, those may have low rating, but everyone agrees that that's a low rating. That's what.
Right, exactly. There's agreement that the rating is low. Okay, correct. Okay, correct. Does that clarify maybe a little bit? Yeah. Okay. So in scenario 1, remember this is the low-tech, weak authentication scenario. This is just a bigger version of what you just saw, by the way. I used scenario 1 as the example. So here are the ratings. The ratings, the average ratings across 38 experts for date of birth, actually date of birth, photo, and signature, those are the highest rated characteristics, the highest rated attributes. Interestingly, the date of birth, signature, and photo, there's also the most consensus that those are the highest rated. Okay. Let's see. There's the government issue, there's not, no, this is relative because the cutoff here is at 90%. Okay, so government issued is slightly less than 90% It's actually around 87% consensus, but it's not among the highest rated. So consensus doesn't necessarily match rating. These are two different things that I'm looking at here. But what consensus does actually is it gives you, again, I'm not trying to draw statistical conclusions here, but the fact that there's consensus among the experts does suggest some level of reliability of the results. Okay? That's what I did here, yes.
So the connections that you draw over on the right come together as a kind of a tree.
They are, that's exactly what it is.
Does the structure of that tree give you any insight?
I thought about that a little bit. Within this tree, there's one cluster, date of birth and date of expiry is one sort of cluster that's at the highest consensus.
I mean, in general. I mean,
in general?
Does the tree encode any sort of knowledge about these results, or if you look at for instance, you can estimate distance within when two things are siblings in the tree, or if they're more separated in the tree.
If they're siblings in the tree, then there's an equal level of consensus. If they're further separated, there's a big difference in the consensus levels. To answer the question, did it give me any insights? I can't say that it did particularly, but that's a very interesting actually thought, is to take a look at that also, because that might be that might suggest something.
Trees are common kinds of knowledge structures. So
Yes.
when you see a tree, you think, is there some knowledge in this tree?
Yeah, as I say, I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's a really good idea.
And what does R stands for?
Sorry, the R stands for, you notice that the average rating is very low, the consensus is high, that the average rating is very low. The R just has to do with the matrix. Actually, in order to get biometrics sorted here,